Hello, welcome to another live broadcast from Kunstman. I'm here today with some really exciting guests, and we're going to be taking a behind-the-scenes look at what we've been doing with Riverboat Stad digitally. The video that you just saw showed us a little bit about where we're at the moment. The boat is really coming together. We're in the final month, let's say, of the build of the boat. We're just about to start laying the deck, so this is very, very exciting. The last, let's say, element of the boat, which really needs to be complete before it is a whole package of a boat. And but before, as you saw, long before that, we really started working on the project from the perspective of let's say the digital side of things, and to bring in expertise into the team to do that, I sought out digital artists who could come and bring that knowledge. And through that, I came and I met with Petros Musius, who's joining us here tonight.
Hi.
And hi, Petros. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Petros has been joined the team about 1.5 years ago. Petros, you're a let's say, digital artist. What is a digital artist?
Yeah. Well, I mostly do 3D art. The last 2.5 years, I would say, exclusively 3D animation. These last 2.5 years, I almost exclusively work in Houdini and doing simulations, basically. Okay. Yeah.
Houdini. What is Houdini?
Houdini is a 3D software. It's kind of known for simulations in visual effects, but at the same time, it kind of it's known as being a procedural software used mostly lately for game development, creating 3D assets, procedural 3D assets, and such.
Okay. Yeah. Well, when I came to you with the question, like, how can we simulate this, or how can we visualize the idea of a boat being pulled through the streets of Dordrecht? Yeah. You came back and you said, "Well, this is not an animation. This has to be done as a simulation." So what's the difference really between an animation and simulation?
Well, the difference is that on one hand, in normal, let's say, keyframe animation, you put keyframes and you determine exactly what the motion of the object would be. In simulation, you add forces, you create an environment basically, and you add forces in order to cause certain reactions to the objects. Either this could be like a pyro simulation, smoke simulation, or a fluid simulation, or in our case, distraction, and how basically we could put a set of rules and see how we can break the boat.
So you've prepared for us a series of videos that we're going to play now, which take us through this process really piece by piece. So let's cue up one of the videos now,
sure.
And let's take a look at what we're seeing. So I mean, what do we see here?
Well, this is the interface of Houdini. This is how it looks like. It's kind of unusual, perhaps, for standard 3D software because it's node-based. So what you get is this type of architecture on the right, where it's basically like a tree system of nodes. Now, what we see on the right is basically the viewport, and here we see curves. Basically, for the start of the project and for the start of the design part of the boat, we wanted to be as flexible as possible. We didn't know exactly how it should look like. We had references, of course, but we didn't know where it would go. So it didn't make much sense to go into a traditional direct modeling approach because we knew we would need the flexibility to change it. So this is the base of the boat, basically, and it's procedurally based, and these curves basically drive the geometry. So if I move a point there, it would move accordingly, the rest of the geometry. And
so what does procedural mean in this sense, then?
Procedural in this sense means that like if we think of direct modeling as a clay that you push and pull, well, let's say in 3D viewport, that means that you push and pull either vertices or polygon faces or edges. Here we don't do that. Here, what procedural means is that we give it a set of rules, basically. And in this architecture on the right that we see by Houdini, this tree view, basically it's a sequence of orders and functions. This node sort of represent functions that are built in such a way that basically it gives us this flexibility that things are connected to each other. And that's why you get this, you are able basically to iterate over and over again rather quickly. In order to develop that, perhaps it takes more time than direct modeling because it kind of has a different mindset.
And so these are the curves. These are the curves.
These are the main curves, yes. These are 5 curves basically, which the whole shape of the boat is built. By the way, like credits to Steven Knipping, who I saw this method of basically skinning curves and making a boat like that was very helpful. But that was the base, and when we got the base set and we said, okay, this is how it should look like, then we could basically follow on the next stage, which is to create basically the module, the different parts of the boat.
Like the ribs that we're seeing now?
Yeah. The ribs, the mast base, basically all the different parts now fall on top of the procedural base that we created.
They fall on top of those curves. So were you to go back and change those curves, then
exactly.
Everything else would change in accordance.
You can go and revisit basically and reiterate without breaking the system. That's the non-destructive way of dealing with this. Whilst if we would use like a traditional direct modeling, that would be impossible. I would have to work much harder on this, and in many cases, I would have to actually start a new boat.
So the first phase was really to build the boat in a way that it was possible to evolve it, as we were not knowing at that time exactly what kind of boat. And exactly its size, its dimensions, and so forth. So this procedural method gave us the possibility to develop that as it developed. And what are we seeing here? What's happening now?
Yeah, here this is a LiDAR scan. This is a point cloud that we generated from the actual boat. So basically, what happened is that we started on Houdini to design and build the boat. Which was the base for the actual boat to be built. From that point on, you could say that these two were going hand in hand. So in this case, we created like a point cloud out of the real boat. So we know that the scale is correct. Everything we do in Houdini is real scale. And the LiDAR scanning really gives us this opportunity to basically make sure of where we are.
But maybe we can explain a little bit. Like, what is a LiDAR scan?
What is LiDAR? So LiDAR is it's a scanning method, basically. Like let's say radar, for example, is a scanning method for using radio waves. LiDAR uses light, basically, and what it does is that it shoots like a laser, and whenever it hits an object, it returns back. Now, because light has a constant speed, the time that it takes basically determines where objects are in space. That's how it basically solves it, I think. So that's
the different amounts of time
exactly
correspond to different distances.
Exactly, yeah, depending on the source, on the sensor. And that generates basically point clouds. That's one method. Now, point clouds are very useful and handy for the simple reason that they are very light.
Yeah.
Like what we see here, for example, is a scanning we did for the route. That's another one.
So those images before, they were the scanning from the
Exactly.
root.
Yeah, this is the environment basically that our boat interacts with. And here we see, like after the model was set, now we're taking it to fracturing. Here we break it, and
so fracturing in this sense. What are we seeing?
Yeah. Okay. So there are different ways. Usually there are more than one ways of doing things in Houdini, but this is basically here we're pre-fracturing the whole boat. So we take every piece and we pre-fracture it in a way that it kind of follows the material that we're using. In this case, it's wood. So basically, I turn it completely into tiny splinters, and then I band them together in bigger pieces, and then we're connecting everything, every little piece basically. We're connecting everything with constraints. Constraints are basically it's a line that connects 2 points, two pieces basically. And the attributes that this line contains basically determine the relationship between these two pieces.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but here we can see basically that. These are the different parts of the root actually that we see. These different blocks, they're separated as such. Here we can see the constraints.
What you're seeing here are the different sets of constraints between the pre-fractured elements of the boat.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So each plank has its own inner constraints that allow it to bend before break. So we can basically simulate wood fracture, and the rest basically keep these planks together with each other.
So they're like the nails of the boat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like hinges, almost.
Like hinges. Oh, and this.
This is one of the breaks actually in the underpass. Well, basically the reason we're doing that is we can't do that in real life. It perhaps could be fun, but we're not allowed to drag a boat and actually break it in the middle of the city. So everything we see here is basically, let's say, like a parallel. It's a parallel dream life of the project. Everything that we can't do in real life, we're doing it here.
Yeah, it's a parallel reality that's happening at the same time. Yeah. And so here we see each and every one of these different breaks.
Yeah, and here we try things. This is basically our research and development. This is how we try things. This, let's say, this is the problem-solving part, and at the same time, it's also the aesthetic outcome of it. Because the irregularity of a project like that, especially working in Houdini, is that our output is not an image or an image sequence. It's an actual physical object in real space. It's a sculpture.
And here we see
Here these are the different parts of the root, and in red we see and pink we see things that are left behind and what's moving forward until we reach towards the last point. And here is like a puzzle of the boat, let's say, where we bring all the pieces together and what's left, basically.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we've been working towards, so that we would know where it would break.
Exactly.
And these are the breaks that we will be actually building into the real boat. The real boat. Of course, this is also a real boat.
Yeah. But there's a more real boat than this one.
A different kind of reality, perhaps. I think with the next film, what we're going to see is that section, that sequence all together, if I'm correct. So let's take a look at that. Oh no, this is the previous video. These are the lidars, right?
Yeah. Here we see the point clouds from the area and the route, basically. And the reason we did that is because, first of all, we want to be able to navigate without having to be on location constantly. And second, because this gives us a pretty accurate measurement of where things are and how can we basically solve the problem of dragging pieces of the boat from.
So this is the virtual world that we've been
Yes, exactly.
dragging our boat through for the last
Exactly.
year and a half.
Yes. The nice thing about this is that, yeah, as I said, like point clouds are extremely effective because they're very light. They only contain basically their location, the X, Y, Z coordinates, and the color. So they don't have rotation. They don't have scale rotation. So they're very light, and you can filter them. And here we're basically converting the point clouds into a mesh. That's been done for several reasons. One reason is that we want to be able to create easily like collision geometry. So we want the boat to actually interact. You can't interact with point clouds. You have to turn it into a mesh, basically, and that's basically why we're doing it.
And from this virtual world back to the real boat. This is the point we're at now, right? We've finally,
Yes.
after all these months, we've finally got to the definite break points, so the definite movement of the boat along the route, and then we started to check that against the real boat.
Yes. Yeah, that's fascinating, right? It's yeah, we're finally at this point where after we're testing and researching, we concluded in some ways what pieces we want, basically, what can go forward, what can fit to go forward, and how do we want that to look like, basically.
I think we'll see if it's right this time. The sort of ghosted ship making this journey.
Yeah, it is a ghost ship, and this is on location.
So this is as the boat moves under the underpass.
Yes, and then it moves over the
grass.
over
Yeah,
the grass.
the cloister town. And this is the final break, right?
Yes, this is before the last turn.
Yeah. So this is the virtual version, the ghosted version of what will be happening on the 9th of October now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that we finally have a date.
Yeah. We'll see how
Yeah.
close we were.
Throughout this process, the back and forth between let's say the real and the virtual has been very important. But like no place has it proved more tricky, I think, than with the fence.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, the fence was challenging.
And this is what we were working towards.
Yeah, this is the first break of the boat that we're never going to see in real life.
No, this break will only be virtual.
Exactly. Yeah, in this we had a different approach. Basically,
It looks like a simple video, right?
Yeah. In some ways, I assume it is, but in others, it isn't.
This video, it took many months.
Yeah. Well, the reason is that this is a more direct approach where you actually know what you have to create. It's a custom fence that you can go and look, and it should look a certain way, basically. So the challenge was, first of all, to build it identical.
Yeah.
Have the scale right, because it will become a sculpture.
I think we've missed the video, so I want to go back. Not this video. I want to go back to the video before, if we can.
The graph of the
There's
fence.
a graph from this video, which I think would be really interesting to see. If we can go back one video. Because this is this video involves the fracturing not just of one material, wood, but of several materials.
Yeah, these are different materials, and that was part of the problem. No. But it's true that the fence contains like of stone, contains of iron, bending, bricks, the mortar that keeps it together. So it proved to be tricky to make it react how we want it, and actually use what's left of it to build the sculpture from it, basically.
I mean, the real challenge with what we wanted to do there is that obviously we're not going to be dragging the boat through
Exactly.
the actual fence.
Yeah.
Yet we needed to
Yeah.
have the geometry afterwards as accurate as possible.
Yeah, and that's not something that you can really determine, I think. It's not something that you see every day. Or
But that was the challenge that I asked.
Yeah, that was the challenge. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't immediately clear how it should look like. How does this react? Like how heavy it is. How all these things had to be tested, I guess. Yeah, and the iron bending and everything.
Yeah. I don't think we can find the film of that, but that's okay. It will come online later at some point, and we'll see it then.
Yeah.
But essentially, what the film was showing was really the complexity involved in how to fracture and how to bring together so many different materials in a way that it kept on breaking, right?
Yeah. Because every material has a different density and has a different mass, and so you need to adjust these parameters, and you need to play with them a lot in order for them to seem realistic and actually, I don't know, if possible, draw some conclusions from it, from the motion, from how they react. Yeah, that was the challenging part, but we got it to work. We got it to work, and yeah, in the graph you can clearly see basically where it starts from, a reference picture of an actual fence, and the progress of it and the different parts of it.
So through all of this, this idea of let's say simulation, something that really started. We spent a lot of time talking about, thinking about, reflecting on what does it mean to virtually simulate something, and what do you use as your imports, as your sources for that.
Right.
And so we were speculating a lot about this, which in a way I think inspired the project we're working on in parallel, Bound to the Miraculous, which is a project where we try to retell Bastian Aarder's fateful last journey from Cape Cod to Groningen. But rather than being a story, or rather than being a real adventure, a real disaster, we try to tell it in a virtual space using live data and using simulation. This posed a whole host of other challenges that came along with it.
Yeah, that was a completely different set of problems actually. That project was based in this live interactivity between like a 3D object and real phenomena, and like a real like weather predictions, and how we take this data and we feed them to the simulation as live as possible. After research, we noticed that we can't do it really live, but we needed to have a bit of a delay. But still, what is this journey? Basically, that we take real data and we feed them to the simulation, and then the boat reacts to it.
We made the project is far from over. We did a sort of feasibility study. It's just at the beginning, but we'll play that now. And this small trailer basically is trying to illustrate some of the techniques that we were looking into when we were researching this project. So what are we looking at here, Petras?
Yeah, these were the first experiments basically with fluid dynamics, and we're just testing basically. The initial idea was let's put it in a fishbowl first, and let's create an artificial environment and see how the boat will react. That was our first simulation, and it's basically what we're seeing right now, like almost like an infinite type of a wave that keeps hitting it. This was of course like a proxy boat. This was mainly to explore like the basics of it, like to really see, okay, what do we have to deal with, and. Yeah, this was a bit further, where we actually, this is the Bastian Aarder boat, like a replica of it that we made. And here basically we can see a bit of a process and how you create ocean simulations. Here we can see how there's like an area, a square that is moving, blending with an infinite ocean. And yeah, we create basically a fluid simulation of the boat reacting to waves, and then we stitch it together with an infinite ocean. And these were our first approaches, basically, of how could it look, and yeah, like ultimately how we can solve the data problem.
Yeah. I mean, what you see here is really looking at the visual side of it, thinking about an output. But we were also in contact with researchers from the University of Utrecht who were looking at ocean particles and the flow of particles within the ocean and ways to map those. And it's through that mapping that we would bring in the data to drive such a simulation. But then we were also in contact with our next guest. So it's a nice bridge to Mata, who's Mata Harris Burridge. Mata is a professor in BOAS in Breda, and he is an expert in game design. And we reached out to BOAS. We reached out to Mata because they have really specialist knowledge in games and games that are games that use live data as well. So let's see if we can connect to Mata. Hello, Mata.
Hi. Hello. How you folks doing over there?
Yeah,
Hi,
we're
Mata.
doing good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, welcome. We were just talking a little bit about the Bassinardo project, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about BOAS and what you do there.
Yes, so BOAS stands for Breda University of Applied Sciences. It's an applied science university down in Breda, which is fairly close to Rotterdam, if people don't know the Dutch geography too well. It's a mid-sized university. We've got lots of different academies specializing in different things. But we have one academy in particular, which is games and media. I'm from the game side of things, and I'm a professional games developer. I've been working with the industry for around 20 years now. And if you're interested in research for video games and making video games and learning how to make video games, it really is one of the top academies in the world. And as you were mentioning just a moment ago, we also have many research projects. And one of those was really looking at how to simulate oceans and the complexity of oceans within that. Currently, the project that we have before moving on to Bound to the Miraculous is very much a map-based view, really looking down at the ocean, looking at there's like the distribution of power lines when going to wind farms or to oil rigs, how shipping moves around to bring us things from China and India and South America. And so it's really looking at a kind of very map-based kind of the use of oceans way. And I think that one of the things I find really interesting about Bound to the Miraculous is very much a much more intimate, much more human scale of thinking about the ocean, and still trying to blend that sense of the enormity with something a lot more intimate, a lot more personal view.
Yeah, it was I think that what you were doing with the ocean simulations that you were working with before, which of course we're working on a larger scale, but they were also used as or are being developed as planning tools, right?
Yeah, that's right. The European Union is very interested in what's called marine spatial planning. And the idea of this is that essentially the oceans have been relatively unregulated and unplanned previously. And the idea of a marine spatial planner is that they can understand all the purposes that ocean is going to be used for, so that we can manage and balance the needs of the environment with the needs of human society, and hopefully minimize and then hopefully eliminate the damage to the environment. So we can actually ensure that biodiversity continues, that pollution is lowered, but also maintain the kind of the practical use that we put oceans to. And there are obviously a vast amount of applications for that. So this marine spatial planning game was very much about building in all the different layers of information that we can gather from the world, the depth of the ocean, where the boats move, where structures are placed, where pipelines and data channels are placed under the ocean beds. And really trying to build in this layer that we can give it to people with this new emerging job of marine spatial planning, and then let them essentially make playful choices and go, okay, but I want to build a wind farm over here, and then simulate over the next 20, 30, 40 years what the implications of that choice might be. You put down a wind farm, you're going to harm shipping perhaps, but biodiversity in that area is going to increase because fishing can't go on around the wind farm. So you might see how these different things happen. And really simulating kind of the impact of these choices that people make, and trying to give a picture for these planners so they can understand how the oceans work.
When I first, or one of the things I've been that has been so inspiring for me when talking with you and also talking with Petros, is opening up and expanding my understanding of what a game is and what games are, whether it is in terms of a tool or whether it is in terms of dealing more with zero-player games, like I was discussing quite a lot together with Petros when we were thinking about the idea of Bound and Miraculous. The idea of a game without a player for me was something entirely new, but incredibly inspiring. And we're going to go on later to talk about one particular game that you've developed. But before we get there, maybe I think it would be interesting to hear from you a little bit about how you arrived at working in games in the first place. Where did you get there?
Well, I mean, I started off around 1999, 2000, making a very kind of artistic focused website. My own background is a combination of English literature and fine art. And I was taught the very basics of HTML programming in, the coding language, markup language. Programmers get very defensive when I call HTML a programming language. But yeah, I started off with this in a collection of photographs, very short story snippets, images that led people through the way they clicked on the pages, sections of the image they might look on, roll over images that might be revealed when people put their mouse over a certain part of the page. And I kind of created this almost maze-like structure as people would explore the website, really trying to build up a sense of almost urban isolation and loneliness, to really kind of get this feeling of being embedded in the city and all this multitude of stories that happen around you. From that, I then had to learn a piece of software called Flash, which has only just stopped working on the internet last year, which is a great loss, I think, to creators, because it's a really easy thing for a lot of designers to get their head around and be able to use and make something creative with. But that allowed me to learn some of the basics of Flash, and then Flash, from there, I learned to make games, and from those games, I made more animations, more storytelling, which led me to work in the big games industry, making things like Burnout Paradise, Aliens versus Predator, and zombie games and ripping people's heads off games and shooting people games, alongside other more beautiful, calm things.
Yeah. Talking of which, shall we show a little trailer of a game that you've made, I think 4 or 5 years ago. Let's put it on now.
It's funny, the things that you remember. A mix of small things, making up a lifetime.
It felt like we were the only people in the world.
How are we supposed to go on? People talk about getting closure, but his story was only half written.
I've let myself lose track of what I want after everything we've been through.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about the premise for the game, Matt.
So, Fragments of Him is very much a story-based game. It's about going on a journey with some characters. The lead character is a young bisexual man who dies in a car crash, very suddenly, very unexpectedly, of course. And it's really about how his friends and family come to terms with that. It's more like perhaps a piece of theatre than you might think of a video game. There are, as you walk around these very detailed environments, there are small objects highlighted that you can click on. And when you click on those, a character might appear, say a line of dialogue, say what they're thinking about in their head. And as you go through this journey, you begin to form this picture of the relationships and the people that live in those spaces.
It's an unusual, let's say, format for a game in terms of its premise. How did people react to it?
Well, we made a first prototype for it actually only in about 3 days, and we put that online, and within about 9 months, next 9 months, 60,000 people downloaded and played this game. What really encouraged us to then spend another 2.5, 3 years making this was those people's responses, the way that people reached out to us, telling us stories. I remember, obviously, it is a story about love, primarily in the final relationship of Will's life. The main character dies between two men, so it's a gay relationship. And the way that I treated that as absolutely normal, absolutely every day, is also driven by my own experiences in relationships, of course. But a lot of people felt like they could relate to that and link to that. We had one journalist who I spoke to before the game was released who was moved by the game when she was first looking at it. When it was finally released, it was only 2 weeks before a good friend of hers had suddenly died in an accident. And she wrote about how the game was very cathartic for her to get through that difficult time she was facing, to help her understand her own emotions and process that. But on a different kind of way, I know I was showing the game in Gamescom in Cologne, which is one of the biggest game festivals in the world, and hundreds of thousands of people attend this every year. Very, very busy environment. And we had a little booth set up for ourselves, and lots of people moving past, very noisy. And this guy came up and said, "Oh, can I have a go?" I said, yeah, sure. And so he put the headphones on. He didn't really say much. He just played this game for about 15 minutes. He took it off. And he was very quiet for a little while. And they said, so I lost some friends in Afghanistan, and I don't think I've quite got over it yet. But what you did there, the way that you're talking about emotions there, that's what I feel inside. And to be able to make something which is so far off of his experience, but dealing so effectively with communicating the idea of grief and loss and love, companionship. I think that's an incredible thing that video games are capable of doing, and I feel very honoured to have been able to generate that for players, along with the team at SassyBot, who did a huge amount of work in helping me bring this to life.
Yeah, what a beautiful story, what a beautiful memory. It's such a powerful tool in that a video game can be very immersive. It can really put you into that headspace. So I can sort of understand, and it makes me wonder about let's say, the use of video games in dealing with trauma, or dealing with loss, or dealing with things. Is this something that has been explored from a psychological perspective as well? Or?
To some extent, yes. I mean, there is a fairly famous, quite big budget game called Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Came out on PlayStation about 2 years ago now, I think, maybe 3 years, where the developers actually worked with psychologists, I think it's King's College, and a group of people who had suffered, or who do suffer from psychosis. And they really worked incredibly hard to work out how to convey the experience of psychosis, to really get yourself inside the head of that character. They used some quite advanced techniques of recording. So, for example, there's a thing called binaural audio, which records the sound through microphones, which are actually the shape of human ears. So when it's played into your ear, kind of back through headphones like I'm wearing, for example, it really sounds like that audio would be if your own ears were hearing it. And they had actors with scripts where they would kind of improvise based on that script, circling around these binaural microphones to really generate that feeling of being circled by voices which are telling you all kinds of contradictory things about what you should be doing, what you should be feeling. Obviously, psychologists worked very carefully with this to try and ensure that it was done respectfully and sensitively. But they also, like I say, worked with these people who do suffer from psychosis. And that team of people, those experts, first-hand experts, said, yeah, this is the most like psychosis that I've ever seen simulated in a game. I think the really fascinating thing about this is that it was both dealing with this intense sense of claustrophobia and psychosis and danger almost, but it was also a story about a young Viking woman whose partner had died, and the psychosis was kind of affecting her very seriously. And she's dealing with all of the mythology of the kind of the Viking era, the changes that are coming as conquests are happening and destroying people that she cares about, fighting against the demons as she makes this journey through grief. So you have this very practical kind of literally fighting demons with swords side of it, but you also have these very deep, well-researched, psychologically based facts and like this real experience very much simulated and conveyed to players very, very convincingly. So I love the way that in games we can combine very intense, serious topics with playful mechanics, with a sense of space and location and history. And we can really pull all these things together to create something very interesting and dynamic that players perhaps have never touched before.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly beautiful, and the way that you can create realities or alternate realities, or choose let's say the logics, the morals, the aesthetics, what it is about, and you can shape that in, of course, relation to the reality that we know. So, so in your game, of course, you chose to make it about a gay relationship and to deliberately normalize that so that there is no difference between that. And of course, that could take on many different forms in different games. And it offers the possibility to open up realities and let people experience that as in a powerful way. That's beautiful. We have a second clip from your game, and this will maybe take us back to it. So let's take a watch of that now.
I can't believe I'm thinking about proposing to Harry while spraying my armpits. I'm such a smooth operator. He's got to know how I feel about him. I love him so much.
I know it sounds weird, but I always felt that Will was a good person. The kind of person I wanted to be around. I loved him so much. It hurt so badly to let him go.
I had been so cold to him, never reaching out. He was even kind to a fool like me. I'll never forget that.
He loved you both so much. One short life together. That was all we got. Brief, but so wonderful.
Yeah, really nice clip. Encourage everybody to go out and play the game. It can still be downloaded. It can still be played. I'd like to talk a little bit about what it's like making a game. Can you take us through maybe some of the steps in the processes? Can you sketch that out for us?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of company and what kind of people you're working with at the time. So there's kind of two main boundaries we might think of in terms of companies, and they're very kind of loose and grey areas between. We kind of have what we call indie development, and we have AAA development. Indie development is usually smaller teams, quite often with less secure funding, and perhaps kind of lower scale games that they're going to make. We have AAA games, which are very big. They're kind of the multi-million selling games. When you look at a AAA game, it starts off often from kind of ideas of marketing, research, but there's also a creative director that has an idea, often within a big company, somebody who's been working games for a long time. At the indie side of things, it can also start in the same kind of place in a way, but usually with less marketing research behind it, where there's like an individual or a small team of people who batter some ideas around together to really come up with something that they all can be passionate about. From that point onwards, it depends on what kind of people are, what kind of game they want to make. So with a lot of games, we typically start off with an idea for a gameplay mechanic. And by mechanic, I mean it's a way of interacting with the game. So in my game, Fragments of Him, you walk around a space and there might be an object highlighted within that space. And as you look around, when you look at the object, the little dot in the middle of the screen might show that you can click on it. You can click on it, and then something plays. So that's kind of the central mechanic of that one. In other games, it might be you move your mouse across the screen, and when you hit something, you're like, oh yeah, I'll try clicking on that. And maybe that sort of the thing that you've clicked on there then reveals another part of a puzzle or something like that. You could be that you control a character walking around a 3D space. You see them walking into the screen and moving around there. So these are kind of mechanics. These are ways of interacting with that world. And often what we find with games, they start off with something unique, a little bit different about a traditional mechanic, something that makes it feel slightly unusual. From there, we tend to often have a setting which is developed like, okay, I'm now going to make a person walking through the world, and I'm going to have fighting with swords, and I'm going to have now a setting of Viking times. And suddenly you start moving towards kind of the Hellblade kind of ideas. In my case, we actually started off with a picture, an emotion, an idea. I wanted to tell a story about a breakup. And I had this picture of a person alone in a room. And the reason they'd removed everything else in that room, everything in the room was bare, was because all the things in that room were too painful to look at anymore. They reminded them of someone that they'd lost. I did initially think about making this as about a breakup, but that didn't feel like that was going to fit with the idea of removing everything. So it really moved on to the idea of grief, loss, and an unexpected death. From there, it was about, okay, how can we make the removal of the objects, the feelings of taking things away, gameplay? In our case, like I say, I started from the story and then went to the mechanic next, which is actually quite unusual. Usually you start with the mechanic and go towards the story. But at that point, you then have to start kind of going, okay, how many people have I got that can make the 3D assets, the world to walk around? How many programmers have I got to be able to make the gameplay mechanics work so that you can't, if you click on the cup, it actually does a thing. If you click on the door, it doesn't do anything, if that's the way you want it to work. So you need programmers to make this all come together. And of course, you need lots of other people like animators. We recorded lots of people moving around in suits so we could actually really get very lifelike movements. We needed musicians to be able to do the score for this, and then obviously programmers and designers to hook it all up together. We needed professional voice artists. We recruited people from film, television, the theatre, and the video game industry to be able to do really good performances and really bring those characters to life. So although it often starts with 1, 2, 3 people with an idea for a kind of a central gameplay mechanic, like an interaction that might be fun or interesting or engaging, or it can start with an idea of a story or a story world that you want to explore. But from those kind of tiny little seeds, you need to have a lot more people get involved with that to really bring a game to life and really do a good job with it. It's quite a complex thing to do.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, well, I just want to say we have to move on. We're running out of time. But what a fantastic insight! Thank you for sharing with us this picture of this the world of making games and how we can interact that, and how complex these different realities can be, and how they can also kind of transcend that reality and be a tool that can help us in many different complex ways and situations.
Yeah, and definitely video games are absolutely an art form.
Yeah.
And they are a collaborative art form. They need everybody else in the team to work together to bring that to life. But the fact it's a teamwork doesn't stop it being any less an art form than film or theatre or dance.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mette.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay. I'm going to welcome on stage our next guest, Joan Heemskerk.
Hi.
Hi, Joan. How are you doing?
Okay.
Joan is one half of Jody. Jody is a pioneering artist collective together with Dirk Pasmans. They've been making, let's say, web-based art, digital art, for over the last 20 years, perhaps? 30 years, yeah. Really
no,
one of
not
the pioneers.
Web-based is 25 years.
Yes, 25 years. So really one of the pioneers of these kinds of practices. And something I didn't know was that Jody is also based here in Dordrecht.
That's correct.
Yeah. So welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight we're going to talk about two projects that you've been working on. One is, I think, still in progress, and one of them is a piece that you finished about 4 years ago, called Tide.
Yeah.
Shall we take a look at Tide?
Yeah, I don't see it here, so I think... Yeah, it's working.
Can we make it full screen?
Yeah, it's very slowly, but I made this 4 years ago, and it's actually a parody on the tides of on the shore, and basically it's changing every second, every minute, and you can tell the time now. It's about 9, I guess. So if you look here around 12, the blue water will be full, and around 6 it will be completely empty. And if you move along the beach, you will see the same in reality.
And so the red hand that's moving there is it follows the seconds somehow then.
Yeah.
And the green the minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a clock, and it's online. It's always there. People can go and they can check it, and they can they can tell the time.
Yeah.
When did you make the work?
It's 2016.
Did you make it in a specific context, or was it?
No, I sometimes make these type of works, and I think I was sailing on a sailboat right then, and I made that work to maybe to see what was going on. And if you're on the sea, you only see the marks of the where you have to go, like the red and the green buoys.
Yeah.
So that's the only track you have, and that probably brings me to the project I'm working on now. So if you come on the harbor, you basically in the night you only see these 2 dots flashing around, and below here is your little boat you have to navigate. I must say, this isn't a game. It's the page is called Aquai. Okay. There's no internet. Just a minute.
So this is this is a piece
Sorry,
you're
you
working
can
on at
talk.
the moment.
Yeah, you can talk over it. I think I need some internet.
Yeah, we're while we wait for the internet. Oh, we got the internet.
Yeah, it's back online.
We're back online. Great.
So, but not on the screen. So I'll keep it like this for the moment because I was reloading the page, and what you see is like the website is called OK, and OK actually is derived from the word OK, which means in French every cargo is on shore. So when the boat was unloaded, they said OK. And now we use it just as a thumbs up, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't think everything marine-wise is so okay. So this site is called sea sclerosion, and it's a variation of the water. And you actually see the amount of sea level rise around the world. So if the water rises like now about 200 meters, you only end up like I think in South America and in China with some liver-like
what do we
continents.
see in green? These are the highest points. So.
That's the highest point.
Yeah.
So it goes on until around 6,000 meters, and that's like the Himalaya. So we can zoom in to where we are now, and it's while it continuously
and it loops.
Keeps low. Yeah, it goes from 0 till 6,000 meters, and then it empties itself. So this is the Netherlands, and even with 20 centimeters, it's still underwater, as you see.
Yeah, it makes it quite clear.
Yeah.
What how low the.
So we are about here. So this is the port of Rotterdam. And here is the Biesboschhal, which used to have some tide. And as you see, there is a hidden feature. That means marine life basically is having all these marks. So here we are around Dordrecht. And there are some ports and there are some boys going around for the ships. Could be pretty useless if the water is rising till 600 meters, 6,000 meters, or even 1 meter.
And so what are we seeing with the different markings? These are ships and buoys, or?
There are no ships here. These are only the markings of the buoys, and basically ships can follow the rivers and the oceans almost blindly. They're completely automized right now, which brings me to another part of this project. Yeah, here. We see Dordrecht slowly coming up.
As we get to just about where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah, you can check it out on your own later, at home. But as you were talking about the other marks in there's a lot of marking also in complete ocean-wise territories. So where you can go and not go. So if you follow the red, let's say, Actually, it's called TEU, and that's a measurement of container ships. And as I
The TEU is a measurement.
yeah, so if we talk about one container, you talk about one TEU. So the big ships, they basically have a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see when it's stranded on the Evergreen
Yeah.
some time ago, it's like you can't have your sneakers right now. So this is actually the same map of the world, and all the ships here, and if you zoom in, there come more. They basically have their names, and maybe I should have started with the other part, but.
Are these ships there now?
These
are
are
real
all-
ships?
These are all ships, yes.
And these are all ships that are at that place in the world now.
Yeah.
Amazing. And how do you track the ships that are there?
Yeah, just not like this. These are images of of actually the inside of a ship.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite a dirty business, no? Yeah, that's the green part, and that's basically tracking ships. So if you see, it's like 90% of all the cargo. I mean, what you see as a flash, only if I move around, is the amount of shipping in 2019. And the ideal for transport is, of course, to go over the north. So they're even building ports already in Siberia with the ice melting.
Yeah, it's much more navigable there apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I'm coming closer to Dordrecht. So if you see all the ships and I mean the purple, I mean the red ones are the tanks, and the orange ones are the fishing ships, and so on and so on. If I reload the page, you will see the different ship types. They are colored, but it's a bit like carnival. If you look at this.
Yeah. Confetti.
Confetti, yeah, totally.
But these are from 2019?
No.
Oh.
I update them as often as I can.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not delayed. And then yeah. While doing that project, I was actually interested of making my own AES receiver. And this is an example, and it's a project I'm working on now. And it's called A to B, Sorry We Missed You. So maybe because a lot of shipments around Dordrecht are from the A to B shipping company. So while looking at the AES data, and you really have an antenna and you hear that noise.
Maybe like for maybe you could explain like what is AES data?
AES is like yeah. It's a signal ships are sending out to, it's like GPS data or like the global positioning, and they always say like, hey, here I am, that's my name, that's the type of ship I am, that's where I move, and they are updated like constantly. so people in the harbor knows what ship is coming in and out. And all they do is listen to the radio all day and hear that noise. So if you record this type of noise and you translate that digitally, you will see what is in and around your environment. And since I live in Dordrecht, and that's about where my package needs to come there, I hear this beautiful noise all the time with an antenna, and I pick up the signals. Oh, here it's lost a bit. And these signals are translated a bit like this. So if you have this gibberish, you can actually digitally make the real ships who are traveling around the world or traveling around my location in this particular case. You can make them visible on the map. And these are like 24 hours recordings which are fast forward. So these ships around, okay, look, there goes A to B, future.
And so this is then the mast coming from Rotterdam here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is coming from Rotterdam.
Oh, that's coming from Rotterdam. Yeah.
And this is where we are about now.
Yeah.
And this is the river point where. And this forest here is about Dordrecht.
Amazing. And is it all cargo ships have such a?
No, these are not all cargo ships. Also, pleasure crafts have them. Even here you see RWS is Rijkswaterstaat.
Mm-hmm.
So the fire brigade, the police on water. Every ship larger than about 14 meters has such a system.
And you can, from your home, you can listen into the radio frequencies, and you can pick it up.
Yeah.
And if you
it's like listening to airplanes, but then you go a bit to the left, and you can listen to ships.
Amazing. And is that also the case that all ships in the oceans also have this above a certain size?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it can all be mapped and tracked, precisely known exactly where everything is.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of like these antennas on shore, but if you're on the middle of the ocean, they track the radio signal by satellite nowadays. So it's completely taken over the old ship bells and. And my idea was to actually go to different places and do this 24-hour tracking, which makes kind of drawings.
Yeah.
Like you don't recognize the land anymore, and the land only is visible where the ships go. So you reverse engineer actually the water-land situation.
And you're defining this negative space somehow.
Yeah.
That is the land.
Yeah.
Really, it's beautiful. It's also making visible what you something that happens in also a different speed. Right? You can watch the boat moving, of course, but you can't really see its whole journey.
No, that's true. And this is actually fast forward.
Yeah.
So it's 24 hours in about 10 minutes.
And this is an expanding series of reflections on the role of shipping and data, or how do you see it?
The OK is like a container, let's say, to have these reflections. But this local recordings I'm doing actually on several places. So I have some footage from a balcony of friends in Rotterdam, and whoever wants to have the antenna, and then you get a completely different drawing, I can say.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It will always reflect where you are and,
Yeah.
and the amount of traffic, the kind of traffic.
Yeah.
And of course, where we live, me in Rotterdam, you in Dordrecht, we have a lot of shipping. So the definition of the land would be quite highly defined. But
Yeah, because when I started this project, I was actually on the Lake of Geneva, and all the time I spotted only 3 ships.
yeah,
And that's because they are not part of the. Yeah, it's not obliged there to have this equipment on board, because it's mostly pleasure crafts, and there's not much commercial traffic going on there.
no. And okay, so different countries have different regulations in terms of which kinds of crafts are obliged to. No.
They all have the same obligations. But if you're on a lake, there's no tanker passing by or something like that. There's no cargo shipped.
No, we learned.
Yeah.
We learned on the last live broadcast we were doing from Jos. He's from the Binnenvaart Museum, and he was talking about just quite how extensive and growing the network of cargo ships is here. It's really an enormous amount of ships.
Yeah, also the way of virtual ships, because we look at them now completely virtual.
Totally. Yeah.
If you go to something like the Europort Fair or something like that, I think a quarter of the booths is about digitalization of ships.
Yeah.
From the traffic to the
drone ships, essentially.
Yeah.
An amazing project. Thank you. We have to draw our time to a close, I'm afraid. But
we can see what time it is.
we can see. Yeah, we can see the time. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this beautiful project. And I really hope everybody can go home and check out these sites for themselves, because it's really fascinating to explore it and to move around and zoom in.
Thank you for inviting and staying that long. Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for watching. We are going to draw this evening to a close, and I just want to say once again thank you to Kunstmen, thank you to the Dordrecht Museum, thank you to the gemeente Dordrecht, and I hope that you will continue to follow what we've been doing with Riverboat Stad. Now we have finally a date, 9th of October, so please keep this in your mind. Come and help us. Go to Riverboat Stad and you can sign up to become one of the people pulling the boat when we get there through the city of Dordrecht. So please, to rivierbootstad.nl, sign up, help pull the boat. Thank you for watching. Good night.